Alright, welcome YouTube to another episode of The House in Fata Morgana. So we concluded the absolutely horrible second story of this visual novel last night. Basically, the evil motherfucker won and everybody else died. There you go. That's all you need to know about the second story. So now we've begun the third story, which is set in 1860 something. And we've got a new asshole named Jacopo. And he is married to the white-haired girl, but he treats her like shit. So, you know. Enjoy the third story, folks. That's it. Looking down dejectedly at the undrunken tea, the white-haired girl walked alone down the corridor. Though its calming scent filled the air, there was nobody around to have their heart warmed by it. Nor was there anyone to alleviate her loneliness. Despite being the master's wife, the maids who crossed her path in the halls said nary a word to her. As a matter of fact... Oh dear, I beg your pardon, madame. It's fine. One even bumped into her, stifling a laugh as she trotted off. In all likelihood, she had done it intentionally. The poor white-haired girl, who had fallen to the floor, stared helplessly at the broken cups. The tea she had made for her husband was forming a stain in the carpet. The maid's behavior toward the mistress of the house was absolutely unacceptable. Nonetheless, it was commonplace, all because of the way Jacopo treated her. The more the man of the house acted cruel to her, the less weight her position as his wife held to the servants. Day in and day out, the maids worked busily, offered little opportunity for leisure, so they would naturally have accumulated quite a bit of stress. And she became the target for them to let off this steam. Not directly, but through a more subdued kind of harassment from the shadows. She must have felt quite miserable. I imagine she would have been better off as one of the maids. On the surface, and in front of others, they showed respect for her as Jacopo's bride, but behind closed doors, they acted very much the opposite. The disparity between the treatment she received around others, the treatment she was supposed to receive at all times, and the way she was actually treated made the abuse that much worse. And furthermore, as you have seen through the other doors, Master, she was a very reserved young woman. She could neither raise her voice in reprimand, nor raise her hand in retaliation. I have to get this cleaned up. She extended her spindly fingers toward the shards of shattered porcelain. But even the broken cup seemed to have no concern to spare for her. Its shattered edge cut her fingertip when she made to pick it up. A trickle of warm red blood ran across her unearthly white skin. As painful a sight as it was, it had a sort of taboo beauty to it. The blood spilling from her finger showed no signs of slowing down. She clenched her hand into a fist, let out a sigh, and went back to collecting the shards of porcelain. But when she did, Madame, Madame, what's the matter? Ah, Madame, you're bleeding. While all the other maids ignored her, one came running over, shouting to the white-haired girl's side. We need to get that cleaned and bandaged up. Oh, you don't need to pick that up. That's not your job, Madame. It's all right, Maria. There's not much to pick up. It is not at all right. And the rest of you, why are you just standing there? Your boss's wife is on her hands and knees, and you're not even lifting a finger to help her? You disgust me. Maria, it's fine, really. Oh, Madame, if you weren't so timid, this wouldn't happen. You're allowed to yell at them, you know. It's all right, really. It's my fault. Anyway, we should get that finger taken care of. Let's get you back to your room, 'kay? But the broken cups and the spill. As I said, that's the maid's work. Now come on, let's go. Okay. And the rest of you, get this mess cleaned up. She roared like the wind in a thunderstorm. The other maids stood there dumbfounded, watching as she and the white-haired girl disappeared down the hall. But they were soon frowning and grumbling to one another. She thinks she can act all high and mighty just because the master is fond of her? The woman's name was Maria. She was one of the maids, and she was the one person in the mansion the white-haired girl could think of as an ally. Though her husband paid her no mind, and the maids made her life miserable. Just one person, Maria, treated her with respect and kindness. And I am sure you can readily imagine just how much of a lifesaver that was for her. I too found myself somewhat relieved that Maria was there for her. Being a servant of this house, I was also one of the maids working there at the time. However, I was unable to involve myself to any great degree in her fate. This meant that there was little I could do to assist her, even in times of pain and unpleasantness. The best I could do was pray that Maria would continue to lend the white-haired girl her hand. And that does it. Thank you, Maria. You're always such a big help. Oh no need to thank me. I just did what any good maid should do. No one else is in the room, you know. Oh, right. Then I can drop the act? Man, I just can't get used to talking all stuffy. I'm out here doing my best, but the head maid's still spouting stuff like, Your manner of speaking is improper for a servant. Every single time we meet. Yeesh, come on, just shove it, would ya? You're a damn creep. Now, you mustn't speak of her like that. Sorry, slip of the tongue. She just kinda gives me the willies, you know? Speaking of, you dropped the stuffy talk too, madame. Kinda awkward if only one of us is acting casual, you know? This is normal for me. If I attempted to talk like you, I would freeze up out of nervousness. This is my casual. Fair enough. Guess that's what happens when you're raised well. I like it though. It has a very regal feel about it. I don't think my upbringing is the only factor. But you know, upbringing is important. Worth a whole lot more than money, I'd say. I suppose. Thank you, Maria. You're always so compassionate. You betcha. They don't call me the Virgin Mary for nothing. I practically bleed compassion. You know, that might be true. You very well could be the reincarnation of the Mother of God. No. You were supposed to laugh at that. It's just embarrassing if you take it seriously. Alone in the white-haired girl's room, Maria was acting much more friendly and relaxed as they conversed, as opposed to her no-nonsense attitude in the hallway. The two women were, as you can see, quite close. They had crossed over the wall separating master from servant and built a bond of friendship. And at some point, they had begun to speak frankly with one another when no one else was around. Maria was the only person in the mansion around whom the white-haired girl felt comfortable being open. I imagine she very much enjoyed these moments of conversation. You wish to know who the head maid was? My. Are you sure you want to ask me that, master? Some questions are better left unasked, for your own good. I have to say, madame, you have the prettiest fingers. Mine are all rough and dry and nasty. You think so? Mine haven't the slightest bit of muscle. They're about as frail as dead branches. Oh, who needs beefy mitts anyways? I still think healthy-looking hands like yours are far more attractive. What? What's to like about these things? Women all over the world dream of having hands like yours. Slender, feminine, and perfectly cared for. I don't know. Just looking at 'em lights a fire in my loins. Makes me want to lick every last one of 'em. Actually, say, can I lick 'em? Can I run my tongue up and down all 10 of those sweet little digits? Come on, can I? What do you say? Stop that, Maria. Seriously. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh, Maria. Right. How did those tea leaves turn out, madame? The ones you imported. All the maids just adore it. They can't get enough of that aroma. I'd sure like to get a taste of it. If you, end up with extra, you think you could spare a sip for me? That was, What was in the cups I dropped? What? Really? Well, ain't that a crying shame? And Jacopo wouldn't have any of it? God, why does that man have such a stick up his ass? You went through all the trouble of making it for him, and he was busy. It's not his fault. Busy? You mean playing billiards, drinking bourbon, and puffing a damn cigar? It may look to us like they are just making small talk, but I'm certain their meetings have some importance to their business. It was imprudent of me to try to step into the men's world. That's just not right. I mean, you're his wife. Why shouldn't you be allowed into the room? It doesn't bother me. You don't have to pretend. Here's an idea. How would you like to have some of that tea now? We also have some orange marmalade, which you like so much. Add a scoop of that and a tray of cookies, and we have the perfect tea time. You're singing the siren's song, madame. But you really should be doing that with him. He would not have tea. I suspect he does not like it. I don't want it to go to waste, so... Madame, I know it's none of my business, and I have no place at all saying this, but... it's not impossible for a woman to file a divorce these days. You don't have to sit down and take it, not one bit. You're pretty, well educated, and still young. There's hope, even if you do leave him. There are plenty of other men out there. You aren't obligated to stick with that arrogant jerk. He's just very busy right now. There you go again. There was a time when he was kind. He wasn't like this when we first met. Back then, he was a little awkward, but a kind man. Him? A kind man? Yes, believe it or not. There was indeed a time. Say, Maria, would you mind giving me a little bit more of your time? I'll make some tea, and we can talk. Alright. If you're telling me about when Jacopo was decent, I'm all ears. Indeed. As I'm sure you're aware, our parents arranged our marriage. Before I emigrated to this country to be married, I lived in a misty island nation. Portraits of my ancestors hung in the house where I lived. I remember as a child wincing in fear at the sight of them staring down at me. My mother and father were constantly telling me to show them respect, as it was their hard work that kept our bloodline alive and well. However, they were fighting an uphill battle to do the same. It would have been clear to anyone reasonably perceptive that our house was coming tumbling down. Valuable furniture and paintings slowly disappeared, and eventually the portraits were gone too. As our house collapsed, so too did my parents' health deteriorate, robbing us of any source of income. And though I was educated, I lacked the skills necessary to obtain work. Just as we were about to run out of money and options, my parents received Jacopo's parents' marriage proposition. Both of our families stood to benefit from the arrangement. I had social status and he had wealth. We each had what the other lacked. One needs more than money to make it in the world. Without at least a semi-reputable name attached to you, you're liable to get laughed out of most social gatherings. I first met Jacopo here, in this country. We didn't even know what the other looked like until our wedding day. To be quite honest, I was scared to death at first. I was so nervous. What kind of man would he be? Was I to be wed to some middle-aged stranger? We were not marrying because we had fallen in love like a normal couple. I knew I was in no position to be concerned with such things, but when I thought about our future, I shook with fear. But the man I saw through my veil at the wedding was remarkable. He was young, had strong masculine eyes, and at the same time, he too appeared nervous. He was shaking as much, no, even more than me. Seeing that, the priest gave an impish little smirk when he asked Jacopo if he vowed his eternal love to me. I counted myself among the happy, and I still do, for in that moment I experienced true love. You wanted to hear about when he was kind to me? Well, after the wedding, we were given a week to ourselves. I suppose you could call it a honeymoon, though we didn't take a trip overseas, or even go very far at all. He looked at me with uncertainty and asked, "Where would you like to go?" I beg your pardon? That's what this week is for, right? I'll consider granting your request, so tell me where you want to go. I, this is all so sudden. Humph. Nothing? Well, this whole engagement was spur of the moment. Normally, we would have planned a trip in advance. But unfortunately, our purpose is served so long as we act the part. You must be disappointed that you have to plan your honeymoon as it's happening. No, What? Speak clearly. I don't like when people don't speak their mind. I'm sorry, but I'm happy, even if this is a political marriage. Well, you're quite the positive thinker. Your parents say something to make you think that way? Well, either way, if you're so glad to be in this arrangement, then hurry up and decide on a destination. Though there is a limit to how far we can go. If you want to take a trip, I'll consider it. What? Is something funny? It just seemed comical to me that our honeymoon has begun and we're only now deciding where we want to go. Not in a bad way, though. I'm glad our parents didn't arrange everything for us. Perhaps you heard, but I am quite sensitive to sunlight and not in the best of health. So it would be rather trying for me to spend a full week out of the house. We couldn't go on a trip, but, if it's not too much trouble... Speak up. Could you show me around town? I'm new to this country and unfamiliar with its customs. And I'm rather afraid to go wandering about on my own. Show you around? Yes. Would that be possible? Humph. On a rare bit of time off, you ask me to show you around town? Is that really the most exciting idea you have? I'm sorry. If, there's somewhere you would like to go, I am fine with that. I will accompany you anywhere. As if I could drag someone who just professed to be sickly all over the country. My God, I've lost all interest in a trip. Hello? What are you doing? Go get ready, now. I beg your pardon? Didn't you want to see the town? You will show me around? You're the one who asked. Not like I have any other options, so yeah, I'll show you around. Thank you. Don't just stand there, you dullard. Get a move on. One moment. Wait for me, please. He hurriedly climbed into the carriage he had called for, a look of frustrated displeasure on his face. And then, as if he had forgotten about me until that moment, he returned, grabbed me by the arm, and led me to the carriage. In retrospect, I realize he was not being very gentlemanly, but I was pleased that he was making any attempt to interact with me at all. As the carriage trotted down the streets, I saw many new things. I had spent most of my time cooped up inside at home, so it was like stepping into an entirely new world. And add to that the rapid industrial advancement currently taking place. I saw men shouting back and forth as they smacked newspaper articles on the back of their hands. I saw corner cafes crowded with cigar-smoking men on break from work. It was like the hustle and bustle of a festival. But every festival has its underside. I also saw overworked men, looking like they were on the verge of collapse, drinking water from a spigot on the side of the road. By way of contrast, I wore fine clothing and had a carriage at my disposal. I imagine every day was a struggle for them just to remain afloat. Had I not married the man I had, I too might have found myself on the streets in a similar situation. But it was not relief that spread through my breast at the sight of them. It was pangs of guilt. It felt to me like a life of opulence was wrong, sinful. It broke my heart to know that I was living so much better than them. Jacopo snorted disapprovingly at me, seemingly reading my mind, and then said, "The poor man who envies the rich, covets his wealth, and finds the ambition to make the same for himself, and the rich man who pities the poor, thinking it his duty to give them offerings of philanthropy. To me, the latter is far more nefarious. Excessive charity will ruin a man, make him come to expect handouts." Oh Lord, this guy sounds like a fucking Republican. And then there are those with the wrong idea of pity, who let themselves fall down to the same place, mistakenly believing it will somehow make the poor feel better. You know, my father is a lot like this dude. What a joke. If you're going to do anything for them, you might as well encourage them to climb upward. Spur on economic growth and the flow of capital. Doesn't that sound like the better option? Yeah, I guess capitalism had already firmly planted its roots even way back in 1860. I say nothing, simply smiling and giving an ambiguous nod. He had a point. My sympathy and guilt meant nothing to people actually experiencing hardship. If feeling guilty of my own fortune, I acted upon that pity in the way he had described, it would accomplish little more than self-satisfaction. He seemed to have to my very core. This was a man who had built his own fortune through investment, which I imagine required him to be rather astute. But doesn't a world where everyone is constantly trying to climb higher and higher sound rather exhausting? I personally would prefer to be in a position where I could watch, if only from a distance, as others climbed. But obviously, I could not say as much to him. Some time later, the carriage came to a stop in front of a shop. As I looked at the building perplexedly, he gestured to the door with his chin, signaling for me to get out. Lost and confused, I stepped down from the carriage, and before me spread a showcase behind a large glass window. However, lined up in the case were not precious metals or expensive clothing, but machines. At first, I had no idea what kind of devices they were. Have you never had your photo taken before? No, I have had a portrait painted though. Are these machines for taking photographs? A portrait, eh? Why am I not surprised? I did not mean to boast. Go on, get in. Ah, please, wait for me. The owner came out to greet us with a wide smile as we entered the shop. Well, if this ain't the strangest thing I've seen all day. You bringing a lady? And a real looker at that. Where on earth did you catch this pretty little thing? She's my wife. Huh. Well, I beg your pardon. I'll be a monkey's uncle. Just goes to show, you never know where the cards may fall. You make it sound like my getting married is some kind of miracle. I always saw you as one to choose money over love, sir. Oh, pardon me. This isn't appropriate to say in front of your wife. Do you often come to this shop? On occasion. I need some things here from time to time. I see. There you go, smirking again. What's so funny? We're going to have our photo taken, yes? I'm so nervous and excited. I've never had one before. And to have it taken side by side with you. What are you talking about? Pardon? Who said we were getting our pictures taken? And side by side? Please. You're sending shivers down my spine. But this is a photography shop. Hey, shopkeep. The product I contacted you about, is it ready? Oh, yep. Sit tight, I'll be right out. You take a seat. There's a chair over there. What? I'm going to show you something much more exciting than sitting still and waiting in front of a camera lens. Oh? Just do as I say. Okay. I sat down in front of a large mirror, which I presume was normally used to check your appearance before having your picture taken. Sitting before a mirror with someone else present was quite nerve-wracking. Out of embarrassment, I dropped my gaze to my knees. But when Jacopo returned, I was entranced by the curious object in his hands. What is this? Do you know what persistence of vision is? The human eye does not perceive the world 100% accurately. This is especially true for objects in motion. Is this some kind of astrology bullshit? It remembers images for a short time, so if you put a new image in the same place, your eye perceives it as in motion. Oh, it's like an animation thing. Okay. Seeing for yourself will be faster than explaining it. You see the slits in the disc? Look through the bottom one and into the mirror. Okay. Good, just like that. Bring your head in close. Here goes. Standing behind me, he slid his finger across the top of the peculiar toy, causing it to spin gracefully. And then, ah, so what do you see? They're dancing. A man and woman are dancing. Sounds like you're not having any trouble seeing it. Are they dancing well? Yes. Yes, they are. It's the most adorable thing. What? Adorable? That's funny. I asked to have it modeled after a ballroom dance. Yes, it's a very elegant dance. But, you see, they're small, like little dwarves, which I thought was kind of cute. And they seem so close, going around and around, without ever letting go of each other's hands. This is incredible. Why does it look like they're dancing? They were all lined up in a row a few moments ago. Goodness, I just explained that to you. It's playing a trick on your eyes. What you're seeing is lots of different pictures in a short period of time. To put it in words you might understand better, it's an illusion. Your eyes are being fooled into thinking the image is moving. An illusion? But they're dancing. They really are. And they look like they're having a wonderful time. Are you sure it's an illusion and not something else? To me, it does not seem to be. I cannot see it as anything but two tiny people dancing. That's how it works. Reach out your hand and try to grab them. You won't be able to. Ah, you're right. That's a shame. I didn't think you actually would. But it's the most precious thing. I was mesmerized by the strange phenomenon. Pictures were moving after all. Still images had begun dancing before me. It was almost as if God had breathed life into them. He had called it an illusion, but I could not grasp that. It was such an adorable, heartwarming sight. I imagined the two were off living in some other world, separate from our own. They looked so happy. I was almost certain that they were off dancing in their joyous world, free from all the sorrow and loneliness and pain of this one. Eventually, the speed at which they danced began to slow, as if they were resting their legs. I almost thought I could hear the sound of their feet with each step. Ah, they stopped. They can dance forever. They don't get tired. I see. I'm amazed. Such an incredible device exists in this world. It makes me wish I had gone outside sooner. I'm sure someone from as distinguished a house as yours has seen plenty of amazing things with your family. Hardly. I rarely ever left the house. I'm ignorant about the ways of the world. If you had not told me, I would have probably never known about moving pictures. The illusion of moving pictures. Do you like it? Yes, of course. More than the portrait you had painted? Yes. Yes, I do. The painting was wonderful too, but you can't seem to make up your mind. Go on, tell me, which do you like better, the portrait or this? Ah, um, I like this better. I see. He looks somewhat pleased. Though when it comes down to it, this is a simple trick only a child would fall for. Then, I suppose that makes me a child. If it means I get to watch something as splendid as two tiny people dancing, I'll happily fall for the trick. Quit describing it as two tiny people dancing. You're going to lose your head that far up in the clouds. Oh, I'm sorry. I do not know how else to describe it, though. It's a toy called a phenakistoscope. Phenakistoscope. I've never heard of that term before. Even though I've seen something just like that before. Phenakistoscope? Phenakistoscope. Phenakist wheel. Close enough. It was invented around 30 years ago. I had the shopkeep make one modeled after the original design. So the shop owner drew this? He did. A lot better than you'd expect, isn't he? Yes, indeed. I am surprised he could draw something so cute. Say that to his face and he'll go red as a beet. What I'd give to get a load of that. You should tell him the next time you see him. He's a sweet man. Despite how he looks, you mean? It's not right to judge people based on their appearance. Ah, I'm just kidding. Don't take it too seriously. The shopkeep here loves new technology. That phenakistoscope is one invention that caught his eye. You can trick the eye into thinking drawings are moving. Using a sequence of photos, you can perhaps make it seem as though real people are moving too. And if it becomes possible to show those images to many people at once, these developments could broaden the options artists have to express themselves. Not drawings, but photographs? Yes, photos. Oh, he's talking about film. By taking hundreds or perhaps thousands of photographs, it would be possible to reproduce the world as we see it. This room, people walking down the streets. There's no point in recording boring everyday life, though. If you're gonna leave a record of anything behind, it should be the projects and enterprises that move nations. Say, for example, a moving record of the opening ceremony of the railroad. That would be something worth watching. And then, in time, it would expand beyond a mere record-keeping technology and find its way into the hands of artists. Is such a thing possible? You must remain still for a long time just to take a single photograph. Right now it isn't. but eventually it will be. And I'm not simply fantasizing here. Is that so? It sounds so very futuristic. Do you... What? Do you want to support people who work on that sort of thing? Is that why you are friends with the owner? It has nothing to do with my wants. I merely think there's money in it. The rich starve for entertainment, and artists create that entertainment. I have no interest in their pretentious self-expression. I just want their money. What? What's so funny? You look like you're enjoying yourself. Honestly, it's just about the money. As you say. Alright, let's get moving. Next is dinner. What? We're leaving already? Does that displease you? No, not at all. To tell you the truth, I wanted to spend a little more time playing with the Fennecis wheel, but I could not bring myself to say as much. Reluctantly, I approached the owner to return the wheel. Don't bother. Bring it with you. What? But... If you don't want it, that's fine too. Just make your decision quickly. You're making the driver wait. Having said that, Jacopo exited the shop. I alternated between looking at his back and the Fennecis wheel, debating what I wanted to do. And then, with a smile, the owner whispered to me, "You're allowed to keep it, really. Your husband out there had it made as a gift for you." For me? A little while back, he came to my shop asking if I could make a phenakistoscope. Now that about knocked me out of my chair. He's a man who almost never asks for favors. He's pretty damn brusque and he's got a tongue sharp enough to cut steel, but he's not wicked to his core. I swear it. So please, ma'am, be a pillar of support for him. In that moment, the Fennecis wheel became a precious treasure to me. We had only just married days earlier, and yet he had commissioned it for me without even knowing what I looked like. I was filled with a warm, pleasant elation. I agreed with the owner. Jacopo was not a bad man. He merely had difficulty expressing himself. Hurrying back to the carriage, I gave him my deepest thanks. He glanced over at me for a moment, then turned back toward the window and muttered, "Yeah." Alright, I'm gonna stop here. Alright. Thanks for joining. Tomorrow, we'll have to see if there's a maintenance period that keeps Genshin Impact down. If so, then I'll probably stream Beat Saber. But if not, then I might just go ahead and play Genshin Impact and then we'll be trying to get Ganyu. So Enjoy the rest of your night. I'll see you tomorrow.